biggest misconceptions in the retirement game.
Having a 401k is not a plan. Having an IRA is not a plan. Having Apple stock is not a plan.
Why do so many consumers assume that their financial advisor is also a tax strategist?
The more money you have, the deeper the knowledge and the experience and expertise that your advisor needs to be aware of.
Very misunderstood as a topic.
If your advisor wasn't proactive, you missed on a huge opportunity. Welcome to the Financial Leadership Podcast. I'm David Aframi, CEO and co-founder of BAM Advisory Group. Each week on the show, we're going to talk about how to build lasting wealth, take control of your financial destiny, and lead with confidence in every aspect of your life. We'll also dive deep into what it truly means to be a financial leader for yourself, your family, and your community. Let's go. Today's episode of the Financial Leadership Podcast, we're going to talk about taxes and the impact of things like RMDs. We're also going to talk about estate taxes and strategies that you could use today so that your heirs could potentially avoid or mitigate the 40% current estate tax. And finally, we're going to break down the do's and don'ts of Roth conversions. Watch this episode so we can show you how you can keep more of your wealth and less goes to the IRS.
So David, when it comes to taxes, what happens when someone works diligently their whole life, saves their whole life? We've talked about this on other shows, and then faces unexpected tax burdens in retirement.
Yeah, for sure. I think let's just say you're watching this and you have $2 million in IRAs. You have to factor that anywhere from 20 to 30% of that money is not yours. That's the government, right? Because remember, if you haven't taken a distribution, you have to pay the IRS every time you take a distribution. So the couple things, so if you've got $2 million, you don't have $2 million. So A, you may have to live off less based upon your expenses, needs, goals, and how you want to live in retirement. B, work part-time. Or C, the one thing you don't want to do is have to take more risk on retirement. So, working with a financial advisor, a firm that focuses on taxes, will allow us to build out a withdrawal strategy that is the most efficient possible, so you pay the least amount of taxes to the IRS and you keep more of your wealth. It's crucial.
David, with all your conversations and with you and I over the years too, why do so many retirees, do you think, overlook tax planning? It's not like people forget taxes are there or that we have to pay them.
Yeah.
And what are the most common misconceptions about that portion of retirement?
Yeah. So I'll blame the financial industry here, Chris, because the financial industry is just all out of whack. You don't have... somebody said, hey, when you save money in your 401k, 40 years from now, you're going to be a lower tax bracket. People were predicting the future, not understanding, where tax rates are going to be or how much money in millions of people have. So a lot of financial advisors aren't even allowed to talk to their clients about taxes. What's I won't say controversial about that, but what's almost doesn't make sense to me is that if you follow the CFP code of planning, which we do at BAM Advisory Group, the foundations to planning based upon the CFP code are taxes. You got to figure out the client's tax liabilities first before you build a plan. So, tax planning was never a thing until probably the last 5 years. Most people, 90% of all the wealth in the world is in all pre-tax investments. Then you have segments, especially the larger firms, that can't really backtrack and start offering these services because they're too big. But then most people go, I'll go to my CPA, but CPAs focus on tax preparation, which is looking backwards, right? So everyone's going to be filing their taxes in the next 2 to 3 weeks by the deadline, but it's based upon 2024. So you really need to work with a firm that focuses on tax mitigation planning. That's looking forward. That's saying, based upon when you want to retire, how much you want to live off of, when you're going to take Social Security, do you have a pension? When are your RMDs due? How do we, manage this so that you can pay the least amount of taxes legally so that we can find ways to create what we call tax alpha in your portfolio?
Yeah, so it's not just how's my 401k, how's my portfolio. There's a whole nother litany of things that go into having a solid plan. How have some of the recent tax changes or laws made proactive tax planning something retirees should consider?
Yeah, so in 2020, the Secure Act 2.0, Congress passed the Secure Act 2.0, and it did a lot of things, but I think the three things that I see that we saw out of that, Secure Act 2.0 being implemented that affects our typical client is, number one, they push the RMD age back to 73. So before, it used to be 70 and a half, which was confusing for everyone. And they moved to 72, and then they moved to 73. And then if you are born 1960 or later, it's actually now 75. So that extra year or 2 years, depending upon when you were born, gives a firm like ours extra years to do tax planning, because I don't have a client that we work with that is looking forward to take their required minimum distribution, because all it's going to do is cause more taxes on their income that they don't need. So that was a good thing. The thing that they really screwed up with the Secure Act 2.0, which is going to really answer your question, is they removed the stretch IRA provision for non-spouse beneficiaries. So what I'm getting at is that if you're watching this and you've inherited an IRA before 2020 from a parent or a sibling, a non-spouse, you are able to stretch those required distributions over your lifetime, which essentially allows you to mitigate the tax burden. Now what the IRS has done is said, hey, now if you inherit a IRA from a non-spouse post 2020, you have 10 years to take the money out. Okay. And I have I can show you a hypothetical example of how that's a mess for people today, because we see it happen, and things that you should be doing to avoid it.
Which part is that? The RMD distribution?
No, it's the inheriting a non-spousal IRA, and then now you're forced to take that money out in 10 years. So just imagine you are 65 years old in retirement, got a couple $1 million or more. You've got your own tax problems that you're focused on, right?
Right.
And then, God forbid, your parents die and leave you another $1 million in an IRA. That puts a complete halt on your whole plan, because you now are forced to take that IRA over 10 years. Most people might go, well, I don't need or want this money because I have my own pension, Social Security, RMDs to deal with.
Right.
I'm going to kick the can down the road. Okay, well, if you inherited $1 million in IRA, didn't touch it for 10 years, and we use the, let's say it averaged 7.2%. That's the rate of return that you need for your money to double over 10 years. So let's say you turned into $2 million, and then you take it all out. How much did you lose to it? Taxes.
Right.
30, 40, 50%. But what if you inherited a Roth IRA at $1 million? You still have to follow the 10-year rule. But if that $1 million grows to $2 million, how much do you get to walk away with? The full $2 million.
Yeah.
So with proactive tax planning, it's crucial that you can, if you're going to inherit money, especially from parents, or if you're at an age and you're watching this, you're like, hey, I'm going to leave money to my kids and it's going to be in this IRA. You need to work with a firm that focuses on tax planning, like BAM Advisory Group, because we could turn that into generational wealth that you could, impact your grandkids with.
So you're saying with proper planning, this is often overlooked, and you're saying with proper planning, there's an opportunity there for many people to save millions, create more millions, pass down more millions with just proper focus and the right firm who can help them understand how to navigate the tax map or the tax code efficiently.
Yeah. It's that old saying, I'm probably going to butcher this. Do you want to treat the symptom or get to the root of the problem? Right? If you think about it, if you get a headache and take Advil, what does that do? That just helps it for a little while. But we got to really treat what is really the cause.
You're dehydrated. So David, let's transition into one of the next phases. That was just brilliantly put. How to protect, keep more of your money by using sophisticated tax planning strategies, and that people should be aware of that and be thinking of that. Let's transition into one of the next biggest misconceptions in the retirement game that people don't understand, which is RMDs. Why do RMDs surprise so many people, and what impact do they really, really have on the overall liability?
Yeah, for sure. So RMD, again, is an acronym for Required Minimum Distribution. In 2020, the IRS changed that rule to 73. Then again, if you're born after 1960, it's 75. Some of you might be under the old rule of 72 or 70 and a half. Regardless, what it means is that now it's 73. So this is the age the IRS says no more delaying, no more deferring. You now have to take a certain amount out this year. And every year that goes up, and it's a published table on the Uniform Lifetime Table is published on the IRS website, irs.gov website. So it's all published. Long story short, you could be in a reasonable tax bracket. Let's call it the 12% bracket. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I have this IRA money that I don't really need or want. And now all of a sudden I have to take this RMD. So let's just say that you've got, let's use the word $2 million again as an example. I've seen it many times where that RMD can push you up from a 12% tax bracket to a 22% bracket. And then on top of that, that can change how your Social Security is taxed. That could potentially increase your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums. It has a huge impact. So the idea is that, again, if we look at, I like to use this terminology, if you're working with a proactive advisor versus a reactive advisor, a proactive advisor could show you, one of the things that we do for potential clients, complimentary, is we build them out a tax map to show them at certain ages, most likely your RMD, if that's going to push you into a higher tax bracket, and we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years before that event happens, let's integrate some proactive planning so that we could potentially mitigate that issue. So, your Social Security is not being taxed to the max. Your Medicare Part B, Part D premiums potentially aren't going up. So we just, there's a lot. I mean, it could have a huge impact on the overall wealth.
So could you walk someone through just obviously a verbal example of how that works? So I'm not working with a overall financial planner who, like you, covers those 5 areas. They get to retirement, they have a couple million, they don't, either remember or haven't been taught about RMDs fully. You mentioned it could affect Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. Mm-hmm. How does that happen?
Well, because your RMD is counted as income, it's a distribution. It's a forced distribution that pretty much every client that we work with at BAM Advisory Group doesn't want to take because all it's going to do is increase their taxes. So it's a forced distribution that counts as your overall income. So think about it. If you've got a nice pension, maybe you've triggered Social Security, maybe you have some rental income. So all you've done is work hard, save, invest, done the right things. Mm-hmm. Then you have this, what we call the tax time bomb, which is your IRA, forced distribution. That could just, say you had to take $30 or $40 or $50,000 out. If you've got around $2 million in an IRA, the calculation on the Uniform Lifetime Table comes out to about 3.8%. Let's just round it up for 4 to make this conversation a little bit easier. That's potentially $80,000 that you have to take out. And if you're living off of, let's say your pension, your Social Security, you got some rental income or some other, dividends, maybe your income's $100,000 and you're happy with that. You don't need any more, want any more. An additional $80,000 that you're forced to take out changes your whole tax, situation. So now you could be in a 12 or a 10% bracket. Now you're going to jump into a 22 or a 24% bracket. Which could potentially erode additional investments and value over time, correct?
For sure.
Of your other assets, if you're not being careful. Yeah, the way I want, if you're watching this, you to think about taxes. I think what the financial industry has done is really focus people on the rate of return that they're getting on their investments, right? If you're getting 7, 8, 9, 10, 12% compounding, you're happy. But see, that number to me isn't the biggest, a number we should be focused on. What we should be focusing on is when I am having to take these distributions, how much of my distribution am I actually losing? 22%, 24%. Which of those two numbers is more impactful? The ROR that you get on your investments, the rate of return, or the future tax liability that you have on your distributions that can erode your portfolio? If I'm getting 7% on my investments, who cares if I'm going to lose 22% on the distributions?
Kind of stated simply, it's what you keep.
Yeah, it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. That's when it comes to tax planning. That's kind of our mantra.
So what are some strategies people can implement without getting too into it, but what are some strategies people can use to manage or reduce the impact of RMDs?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, the simplest way to look at this is And there's a lot of high-level tax planning strategies. It's just not one way. It's really about understanding you, your goals, your objectives, and what is available to you. So, but the first thing right off the top is Roth conversions. It's understanding how to maximize Roth conversions. I think what most people realize is that, there could be a point in your life where initially you're at a low tax bracket. Let's call it a 12% bracket. Let's say you and your spouse are in retirement. You want to retire at 65. That means you have 8 years before your RMDs are due. So you have a really nice runway to look at some advanced tax planning. And let's say you need, $80,000, $90,000 a year, reasonable income, right? That puts you in the 12% marginal bracket. Well, if we're going to show you that your RMDs are going to bump you up to the 22% bracket, and you're currently in the 12% bracket for the next 8 years before you have to take your RMDs, we should potentially look at maximizing that tax bracket, right? As high as, let's maximize the full bracket in the 12%. Let's do some conversions and let's see if that can potentially reduce your RMDs and save you money on lifetime taxes. Oh, and by the way, the more money that you have in a Roth growing tax-free for a longer period of time is going to be a better legacy transfer for your heirs. So your heirs can keep more of your wealth. And again, less goes to the IRS.
How easy is a Roth conversion at that stage?
It's easy if you're working with the right people, right? So the right people know what to do, know how to do it, know how to build it, know how to show it to you. Because the whole thing too is for some people, tax planning isn't going to move the needle at all. And those are for people who don't, unfortunately have a lot of wealth. Maybe most of your investment income is Social Security. Maybe you got a pension. Maybe you have a couple $100,000 in IRA. What I'm really talking about probably isn't going to move the needle. But if you have north of $500,000 in an IRA, from my experience, 25 years helping thousands of families retire comfortably, safely, maximizing their wealth. If you have north of $500,000 in IRAs, some form of tax planning is going to help you either keep more of your wealth for yourself, create more tax alpha in your portfolio, or help you transfer more of your wealth tax efficiently to your heirs.
So what I'm hearing is for strategies to reduce impact, potential strategies to reduce impact of RMDs. And again, this isn't a cookie cutter system. Everybody's different. Realize we're talking about some specific things, but it is per person. And so you do have to sit with someone and understand, but these are just basic overviews of some strategies. I'm hearing Roth conversions.
Well, so for people that have that runway, they're retiring early, again, a 65-year-old who doesn't have to take their RMDs till 73. Roth, we've done these analyses thousands of times. Roth conversions really move the needle. Now, maybe you're 73 or 70 and a half or 72 under the old rules and you're already taking your RMDs and like, well, I'm already at that point, Dave, what can I do? There's a lot of things you can do. Number one, if you're charitably inclined, we can look at qualified charitable distributions as a way to maybe pass some of the, maybe you don't have kids, or maybe you're like, my kids are doing fine. I don't want to give all this wealth to them. I'm more charitably inclined. Well, QCDs can help reduce your tax burden. Or, because here's the mistake that most people make, especially when you're working with an advisor that does not understand the tax code and what we're talking about. And we see this happen all the time. People coming in the office, they're already taking their RMDs. And what their advisor says, okay, well, you're forced to take it. Just throw that into an investment account. And then what happens? You pay the tax on the RMD, it goes into an investment account, and then you're taxed again on the growth, capital gains, and dividends. There are ways where you can take your RMDs and fund strategies where you can transfer wealth tax-free to either your spouse or your kids. You just got to work with the right people. It's the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And you might just be working with the wrong person.
So again, Roth conversions, have a plan, charitable distributions, and potentially some life insurance in there.
Yeah, life insurance is a way. Some people go life insurance, but like if you've got,
it's an incredible tool.
If you've got RMDs that you don't need or want, instead of reinvesting those into a investment account where you're taxed on the capital gains and dividends again, right? So we call it the double tax. And you're going to leave money either to your spouse or your kids. Potentially, I'm not saying this is right for everybody. Potentially taking some or all of those RMDs, if you don't want to donate them to charity, you can leverage those using a life insurance policy and leave millions to your kids and grandkids.
Yeah, tax-free as well.
Tax-free. Lump sum.
Let's move on to another big tax conversation that happens constantly. You hear about it often is capital gains and the hidden cost of selling investments. What are some of the most common mistakes retirees make when selling assets that have appreciated?
Okay, so this is a great conversation, and I'm going to go a little deep here. So, if you are not, you hear this term tax loss harvesting a lot. Generally,
Can you cover what that means real quick?
Yeah, tax loss harvesting is saying, okay, if I have a joint or individual investment account that's in my name, my wife's name, trust name, it's not an IRA basically. Tax loss harvesting is where your CPA will say, hey, do you have any losses that we can offset any gains, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's generally done once a year. A non-qualified account or a joint account where you could have if you've had one of these accounts for 10, 15, 20 years, we see it all the time, you have highly appreciated assets because the market has done incredibly well over a 10, 15, 20-year period. And we see people that are kind of stuck in this place, well, I'm not going to touch this money because the minute I touch this money, it's going to trigger capital gains. David, what can be done? If you have daily tax loss harvesting as part of your overall tax plan, where you're offsetting losses with gains, because the idea is that you want to get the cost basis of that account down to zero.
So real quick, you're saying it's kind of where people will sell off at the end of the year if in a position to take losses on that account so they can offset their taxes.
A little bit. If that's done once a year, you're not taking it. I mean, you have the other 364 days. What's going on? If you look at daily tax loss harvesting, man, it's a game changer because there's always going to be stuff that you hold that's not performing well and stuff that you hold that is performing well. And the idea is that you want to kind of get that cost basis close to zero as possible so that if you ever needed or wanted to supplement distributions down the road from this account, the less gains that you have in it, the better. And the way that you can get there over time, it can't be done overnight, is that you have somebody who's doing daily tax loss harvesting. And that's something that most firms just don't do because you need someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, it's daily diligence.
Yes. Discipline.
Why do high net worth individuals face greater tax burden when selling investments?
Well, I mean,
just more money, more income.
Well, it's the simple thing is like, okay, if you've got high net worth, you've got a lot of income, probably have rental, you probably have real estate, you have probably large after-tax accounts, you have a lot of capital gains and dividends, then most likely you saved well and you probably have large IRAs so that, everything that we're talking about just compounds based upon, your income and asset level, right? So it's the more money you have, the deeper the knowledge and the experience and expertise that your advisor needs to be aware of.
That makes a ton of sense. There's just more things to track, more things to cover, more things to consider.
More opportunities. The higher, it's bottom, that's the way the world works, capitalism. The higher net worth individual, because of the fact that they have so much money, there's so many more tools that a firm like ours has to cater to that high net worth individual to show you real value over time. Whether that's legacy planning, tax loss harvesting, tax planning, charitable distribution, you name it. There's just more available to you.
Let's move on to one that I've personally experienced in my life. We've talked about it on prior episodes, but it's estate tax.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about it. It's in the news very often. I think it's often very misunderstood as a topic. And many people assume that estate taxes only affect the ultra wealthy. Is that the case?
Well, yeah. So right now, and this, which you have to understand, the current Tax Cuts and Job Act is going to expire this year. So this could potentially change after this year. Right now, the current estate tax is 40% if your estate is over $13,999,000. That's per person. So a husband and wife, they almost have a $28 million estate tax exemption. So if you don't think you're going to die with, and again, this estate tax threshold changes all the time. In fact, fun fact. Can I give a fun fact?
Oh yeah. Fun facts.
The year that George Steinbrenner died, and I forget the year, you know what the estate tax was then?
$1.5 million.
0.
Oof.
You think conspiracy theory? We got to play some conspiracy theory music here.
Oh, Maddie loves a good button, dude. Yeah, Maddie loves
press
a good button.
Any button, Maddie. Conspiracy
oh,
theory.
Maddie, it's your time to shine. Zero
It's a fact.
estate tax.
The year he died, you don't think they're like put him in a chokehold, put Grandpa to sleep?
Yeah.
He passed his whole estate, the Yankees and whatever else he had. Nobody paid any tax.
Wow.
So here's the thing, like, if you're in your 60s and you have already north of $10 million of your estate, now we're including your investments plus your real estate. Using strategies like gifting. So I think like there's been a huge, again, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been helping families retire well, pass legacies, be more tax efficient, all this stuff. I've seen a shift in thinking of how money is left behind. So the seniors and the older baby boomers still are under the like old way of thinking, or I'm just going to die and just pop this money on my kids, right? They didn't really talk about it. A lot of bad surprises. Go watch one of our previous episodes. We talk about, really, having a good open dialogue with your parents about, hey, are you going to leave me some money?
Yeah, crucial.
Yeah, it's really important because your parents they could lose half of their net worth overnight because they didn't do any planning. I mean, and if
all
you
the
watch
infighting that happens.
And if you watch your parents work and sacrifice and not take trips, and this money's going to get lost, it's horrible. But so now what we're seeing is our clients that are in like their 60s or 50s think differently about their money, especially our high net worth, ultra and high net worth clients. Because one of the things you want to do, if you've got a lot of money, again, north of 10 million, 8 million right now, and you can model out 6% rate of return, and based upon how you're going to live, you're probably going to leave a lot of money to your kids. And we don't know when estate taxes are going to be 20 or 30 years from now. But instead of being caught off guard, using things like gifting, basically what you're doing is you're getting money out of that estate, your estate now, and taking advantage of that and giving it to your kids and grandkids now, and actually watching them benefit from the money now, which I think also gives you satisfaction to say, hey, wow, I can help my kids get off to a faster start versus just dumping a bunch of money on them at 65. That could potentially set you up for wherever the estate tax threshold is going to be when you die, that you've got, you're okay because we've been gifting money all along, which is a high level strategy that a lot of people don't take advantage of.
That's charitable trusts.
Well, you could just straight gift into investment accounts. You can, set up life insurance. You could gift into life insurance. I mean, there's so many things that you can do.
So a potential client would come in and say, have this conversation with you. You'd help them build an estate plan around their specific scenario, help them understand the estate tax, help them understand how to mitigate a portion of that. And some of those solutions are gifting, but knowing the right advisor or working with the right team, that team's going to know where the gifting levels are, where to pull from.
We would pull in a local estate planning attorney that we've worked with, and we have,
so you have a team of professionals too.
Yeah, team of professionals, because they understand the estate tax. We're the ones in that situation. The estate planning attorney is the quarterback. We're the ones that are facilitating whatever strategy. But we use things like ILITs, irrevocable life insurance trust. That's where you're taking a certain amount of money. It's funded by your trust owns life insurance policy. The idea is that this life insurance policy could potentially help reduce the estate tax. Because if you think about it, maybe you just got so much money, you're like, I'm not avoiding the estate tax. I don't care what we draw up. There's just going to be a 40% tax to your heirs. All right, well, what if we funded a $20 million life insurance policy so that when your parents do transfer wealth, we have this tax-free money that's going to offset these taxes. Very, very powerful.
Such an important conversation to have no matter what level you're at. I think there should be whole courses on the internet on how to talk to your family about that next step.
Maybe we should do that on the side.
That'd be amazing. No, it would help a lot of people, man. I mean, so many people shy away from that conversation, don't want to think about it. I would even argue that uber wealthy people think they're going to live forever and they just avoid the conversation. So, incredible. Kind of circling back to Roth conversions, and this whole show is about tax planning. Why is converting an entire traditional IRA into a Roth in 1 year often not the best approach?
Yeah. So it's funny that you've, when I saw this question, I was like, oh, you know what? We ran into this scenario. So let's just imagine this hypothetical scenario, not a client of ours. You're just dead set on, I'm going to convert. I got $1 million, $2 million, $500,000. I want to convert the whole thing now. Potentially, you got to think about it. It's going to, you could be converting that at the highest tax bracket, 39.5% plus state tax, Colorado, 4.55 or whatever it is. That's 43% tax right off the gate. So 43% of your money is, now maybe you have that it's set aside in cash. The idea of doing Roth conversions, the best way to maximize it, in my humble opinion, I've been doing this for a long time, is that whatever the tax is going to be, you have cash on the side to cover it. So you're converting the 100% of the amount into the Roth, and then 100% of that amount has the potential to grow tax-free. But to answer your question is that you could, let's say you've got $500,000 in an IRA, and you're like, I just want to convert the whole thing, be done with it. And then, David, I've got another 30 years to live. So I think in 30 years, that money is going to recoup and grow tax-free and be great. Okay. Well, let's say we did the conversion, and that potentially cost you 40% in taxes, right? Federal taxes. So there's $200,000 that's wiped off the top, right? And let's say the market crashes that year. Jesus. You've lost 50, 60% of the whole value in 1 year because you did. In my expert opinion, most of the time, we'll call it 99% of the time, it's slow conversions over time, maximizing your tax bracket based upon your unique situation. I mean, think about anything. Like if I were to say, hey, you want to lose weight? Take this pill. You're going to lose you're going to lose 50 pounds tomorrow. We all know that whatever you lose in 12 months, whatever you lose quick, generally half of that comes back.
What's the side effect?
Because habits. It's slowly done over time, diligently with a process that's monitored closely. That's going to get you your best results.
And to kind of reframe that, you're saying it depends on the year, the timing. Where's the market at? What are we pulling out? Where am I at in life? And considering all those factors, which there could be, infinite numbers of factors that a person is in to make that decision. Sitting down with someone and understanding how to convert efficiently.
Yeah. And I'll give you another great example. Hypothetical example. Rule of thumb. I can give rule of thumb, right?
Yes.
The best time to do Roth conversions is when the market's negative. High volatility. Why? Is because you have stocks that have decreased in value that you can convert at a discount that we believe long-term will bounce back, and you get all the bounce back tax-free. So for example, and remember, let's go back in time, basically 5 years ago. Think about that. 5 years ago now. 5 years ago today, the world was in chaos. 5 years ago today, the S&P 500 had its largest 1 month drop in the history of the market, 34%. It's COVID. If your advisor wasn't proactive, you missed on a huge opportunity, because if you right then and there, if you were doing tax planning, that was one of the best times ever to do Roth conversions, because the market bottomed out fast and quick. And if you had advisors that were on top of it, non-emotional, understood the value of it, you could have converted a bunch of money that, remember, the market dropped 34% through March of 2020. Does anyone remember what it ended up the year at 12/31/2020? The markets ended up positive 16%, the S&P 500. That's a 50-point swing. So if you would have converted heavy at the bottom of COVID, which was March of 2020, you would have got a 50% appreciation in rate of return that would have been tax-free into your account. Another time, remember 2022, the S&P 500 was negative around 20%. That was a great year to get aggressive with Roth conversions, because after 2022, both 2023 and 2024 were plus 20% years in the S&P 500. So you would have had a 50% increase in your portfolio in tax-free growth. So like, if you're watching this right now and you're like, my advisor never called me during those two situations, then your money isn't being leveraged and maximized to its fullest.
What about other misconceptions? That's timing issues on the Roth conversion.
Yeah.
What are some other big misconceptions about the Roth conversion?
Number one, you cannot convert RMDs. You cannot. You can either spend them, donate them, reinvest them.
Meaning people come to you and be like, I can just swing these over into this thing.
So this is why we say for high net worth people that want to leave a tax-free estate, taking RMDs and funding life insurance is the Roth conversion strategy for the wealthy. So you cannot convert your RMDs. Number 2, under the current Tax Cuts and Job Act, there is no limit to how much you can convert. There used to be a limit pre-Tax Cuts and Job Act where the limit was $100,000. Under current law, there is no limit to how much you can convert. And I can tell you right now, I mean, I'm not a fortune teller, but I have a belief because we're in $36 trillion in the debt. At some point, they may come out with a limit on how much you can convert. That's why taking advantage of tax right now, currently, is the environment favors tax planning. That maybe it's some of the best environment that we're going to see for a while because they got to figure out how we're going to cut down this debt. Generally, it's through taxation of something, investments.
So final section and wrapping up this show. This has been an incredible show on understanding taxes as you build your wealth, or if you're at the end and you're getting ready to take that wealth and live on that money, understanding strategies on how to mitigate taxation. So David, why do you kind of touched on this in the beginning, but why do so many consumers, so many individuals assume that their financial advisor is also a tax strategist? And why is this a potentially dangerous assumption?
Well, I mean, I think, and I don't blame the consumer. I think the financial industry is still all screwed up because this really was never a problem in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. It's really when the baby boomers started retiring because they had all the wealth. Not only did they have all the wealth saved, but then they're inheriting wealth from their parents, which were the seniors. So this kind of perfect storm kind of came into play. And one would think when you're talking about my overall wealth, it's not just how much money can you make me based upon stock recommendations, portfolio recommendations is. How much money can you save me via tax? I think a true fiduciary should manage the whole concept of your wealth. That's not only how much money you make, but it's how much money you keep. And if you don't really ask the question, you just assume. And we all know what assumption, what is that technical term of assumptions that makes an ass out of you and me? So then we have these larger firms don't allow their advisors to do it. Now, I think really where you're going to get the best advice, and of course I'm being biased because I'm independent, is through an independent financial advisor. Because the independent ones do not have to follow the rules of a large corporation that tell you, okay, well, we don't do this, this, and this. All we do is investment management, right? That's only 1/5 of the pie. Tax planning to me is the real game changer, especially if you've got a lot of money, and BAM Advisory Group tends to cater to people over $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million is really our sweet spot. $5-10 million is really our sweet spot. And, we cracked that code years ago. And if your advisor's not talking about taxes, then what are they really doing for you?
How often should retirees review their tax strategy?
I mean, I think every time if you're a high net worth individual, you should probably be talking to your advisor once a quarter, and that's when it should be revisited. Because if I'm only meeting with you every 6 months, I may or may not have the opportunity to be as proactive as I really want to be. So I think at least once a quarter, every 6 months is okay. But if you're watching this and you're only meeting with your advisor once a year, no bueno. That's right. Spanish. That's English for no good. Spanish, that means English. That's no good.
David was just in Miami. So
yeah, that's why my face is all brown.
He's caught up on his Spanish.
Poquito.
And final question, what is the most important step someone can take today to ensure they aren't overpaying taxes in retirement?
Yeah, it's just, is meeting with a financial advisor, a firm, and asking this question, do you do tax planning? And it's a simple question. It's a simple yes or no. If they say no, move on, find a firm like BAM Advisory Group that does tax planning that will build you out scenarios based upon your unique goals and objectives, when you want to retire, how much you want to retire with. Do you want to leave money behind? Do you want to do, give away money to charity? And run multiple comparisons to show you the power of tax planning and how we can really move the needle.
So David, let's talk about some tax efficient withdrawal strategies for retirement income. How does the sequence of withdrawals from different accounts affect? And I know we do have some episodes on this.
Yes.
The sequence of returns. If you're on the page, go check that one out. We go into very exacting detail on sequence of returns. But yeah, how does that sequence of returns, withdrawing that way, affect overall tax exposure in retirement?
Yeah, so sequence of returns, meaning that like, hey, based upon the returns I get in the market and I'm taking distributions, how can it affect your portfolio? Like we've talked about is one thing. This, what you're talking about is sequence of withdrawals, completely different. Because remember, you have most people that, especially we work with, have money in different areas. Number one, simply pre-tax IRA money is all taxed at your ordinary income, your rental income, pension income, Social Security income, interest income, work income, all ordinary income. But then you have a different tax code, a different tax bracket for individual and joint accounts, investment accounts that are not IRA. Those have more favorable tax bracket, again, 0, 15, and 20. We covered this in one of our previous episodes where we actually showed you a tax map. Because if you can blend withdrawals, right? Let's say you need $150,000 and you have a lot of money in IRAs, 401ks, you have a lot of money in after-tax accounts. You could actually blend withdrawals. And some of your withdrawals are at 12, some of them are at 10, some of them are at 0, some are at 15. There's a recipe for success. And we always look at multiple withdrawal strategies to make sure that we're as tax efficient as possible. I mean, that's a game. It sounds simple, but most advisors don't do it. And it's something that we do, and we've been able to save a lot of our clients, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes.
So you're saying sort of part of the of implementing that is part of it is saving money. What else is the benefit of making sure your sequence of withdrawals reduces your tax liability?
Well, you just get to keep more of your wealth. I mean, that's about us. I mean, we want to make, unfortunately, we try to make financial services very difficult. I want to make it simple. Mr. Jones, Sally, John, let's do our best to keep more of your wealth legally so that you can either spend more or give more. How does that sound?
Sounds awesome.
Okay, sign up today.
Can you explain the concept of strategic tax bracket management and how it benefits retirees?
Yeah, so it's kind of the same scenario, right? If you look at the ordinary income bracket, the current tax brackets for, let's say, married filed jointly, 0, 10, 12, 22, 24, 32%. There's a 37% in there too as well. 39.5% once you get to the top. It's really important to understand, again, how we maximize those brackets, how we make sure, like for perfect example, let's say something comes up and you're like, hey, I need $50,000 to buy a car, or $100,000, whatever it is. I want to take my family on a trip. I need 20 or 30 grand. If your advisor doesn't know if that withdrawal is going to move you up to a tax bracket and where to look to get that money, then again, you're just working with the wrong person. So you got to know, because it'd be perfect in life if you knew exactly what you're going to spend every day, every year for the rest of your life. But things are going to come up that are a surprise or a want, and they're going to be large ticket items. And your advisor really has to know the tax code and where can I pull that money out so it doesn't jump you from a 12 to a 22% bracket, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So in closing on sort of this segment of the show, you've kind of mentioned some, but what are the most common withdrawal mistakes people make?
Just not having a plan. Having a 401k is not a plan. Having an IRA is not a plan. Having Apple stock is not a plan. You've got to have a detailed, sophisticated, well thought out distribution strategy to maximize your wealth. Period. End of story. And it's year to year. It's different. It changes based upon strategy, needs, wants, taxes, market environment. I mean, that's where the real high level advisors do their best job and shine for their clients. And that's where, that's what BAM Advisory Group does best.
Once again, this is David Aframi, co-founder and CEO of BAM Advisory Group, also a licensed investment advisor representative. If you would like to see how we help our clients protect what's priceless, how we've helped our clients for the past 25 years, please visit our website at www.bamadvisorygroup.com and schedule a no-cost, no-obligation meeting with one of our advisors. If you're enjoying the content and you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe. Thanks again, and we'll talk with you soon.